What a blessed Friday this is. My name is Mugisha Muntu, and we are streaming live on our own social media handles. It's the Alternative Digital on Facebook, the Alternative Digital on YouTube, and also on TikTok, same name. Every Friday, Face the Nation. Gladly, we have, for the second time on Face the Nation, we have General Mugisha Muntu, a flag bearer for ANT, Great Alliance for National Transformation, the recently concluded presidential elections. We're with him to, of course, asking him to face the nation and account for the time when it comes to the campaigns as they were. General Muntu, thank you, sir, for paying time, and of course, I want you to say hello to our viewers, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure being here again.
Humbled. Now, this is
to you, dear viewers.
Thank you. This is quite a different show, if I should say, or rather an interview. You had over 90 days of campaigns, and you were busy preaching to the public about what ANT has for this country. People out there continue to say that by and large, ANT seems to have some relatively fair ideas as compared to your other colleagues. Where is the problem? Is the problem with the teachers, you bad teachers, or the bad or poor students? Who do we blame?
Well, I don't know whether it should be an issue of blame, but the fact that people do appreciate the message, I'd like to believe that they therefore understand that it is a good message, but that they are not able to integrate it into their thinking processes and also put it into action. Must therefore be, maybe it's an issue of timing. Because if people appreciate the message, but they are not able to put it into action, it means it's something that is entirely out of our hands. So as to when they'll be able to adopt it, I don't know. But we are happy that people appreciate it.
For how long
We do our part. As they say, you can only take a horse to the river, but you can't force it to drink.
Or it's about, for some reason, changing the strategy. Because there are some students who are, we call them fast learners. There are people who also learn through audio visual. There are people maybe who learn through sign language. Is it high time you thought of rethinking the strategy of how do you impart knowledge to the students, in this case citizens, to understand your manifesto?
That's why our programs are continuous. The only difference is that now it was feasible in the sense that we're involved in a campaign program. But the last 5 years, we're reaching out to the communities at sub-county levels. The only limitation was resources, which is again another issue I think that we have to pay a lot of attention to as a people, as a society, because we must decide where do we want to go and how do we get there. And for us in ANT, the way we look at it is that parties are the makers of governance. If you want to fix the country, you start with the parties. The state and nature, the organizational capabilities, the ideological orientation of an organization is what enables a country to go in a particular direction. So the population has to make up its mind. Where does it want to go? In whichever direction they want to go.
Do you think the population understands where it wants to go, in your view? Because
They
you
do.
the country.
Yes, they do.
So-
What they seem not to know is the how. But also when they do, they seem to think that what they want is impossible to get. That's another problem.
So how do you solve the problem of the how? Like, they are not sure of how they want to reach where they want to reach. Because one is answered, they know where they want to go.
Yeah. They know.
But in your opinion, they do not know the how.
Yeah.
And you have been preaching this how for quite some time.
Yeah.
Does it take you back to either poor teachers or poor students?
You see, the good thing is that the things in life which, even when you talk about, that take a while for people to understand and adopt. As long as there are people who are resilient and they're also persistent in keeping on, pushing on the same message, is a point when you have a number of people who believe in the message, when they are rolling together and they are able to influence the direction of politics in the country to the extent that they are able to take power. When what they are talking about is implemented and the outcomes of it become self-evident, then it becomes stronger. Right now, people know, the majority of people desire to see a country where there is justice, where there is fairness, where there is transparency in the management of national resources. Those are basic. And I suspect that 80% of the population wants to go in that direction. But see, on the other side, because there's a contention between two different forces, there are those in our society who are now temporarily the dominant force, who believe that it doesn't matter how you get whatever you want to get. Simply get it, don't care about the method. The end justifies the means. That's the dominant group. Now, unfortunately, where we are at, people think, many people who desire to see fairness, transparency, and justice exercise. They know it's good. They know it will be good for society. Unfortunately, for whatever strange reason, have almost been led to believe that it is almost impossible to achieve. Therefore, as they say, if you can't beat them, join them. So they're on the other bandwagon, those who think that the end justifies the means. Now, those who believe that the process is as important as the end state is where we fall.
A reason for which you underscore, because
we can't live in
how long?
We can't afford to live in a park, like a national park. Because in the national park, a lion will do whatever it wants to do. And the antelopes, the zebras, there are all these.
Who is a lion? Who is an antelope now?
The thinking of the end justifies the means is where those who believe in that, the lions, they just want to have a jungle law, where it is the survival of the fittest.
And they will eat all antelopes they will eat all antelopes in the jungle.
Now the unfortunate
the survival mode for the antelopes, they remain at the mercy of.
The unfortunate thing is that our population, those who are actually antelopes and zebras and the
rabbits,
yes, all those, unfortunately, seem to think that they can become lions. So they are struggling to become lions, which they cannot. So they remain vulnerable until a point when they recognize that, you know what, as long as we have a system where the jungle law applies, we can't survive. Therefore, how open the process is, because they are the majority, let's mass numbers and get organized so that we fight to get a system where there's justice, where there's fairness, where there's transparency in the management of national resources. And when that thing becomes dominant, then you can shift the balance of forces in favor of that. And therefore they can build a new political environment. Because what we are fighting is a culture. It's not just General Museveni as many people think. Because General Museveni is on his way out, clearly you can see. One or another, he'll get out. And then once, yes, you see, of course most people look at time. Most people look at time in terms of, years. 40 is 40 years in terms of human progress. We've seen empires which have been there for 100 years, but eventually they collapse. When you're looking at things from the perspective of culture, one individual, 40 years is out. The British were here for 70 years. Well, unfortunately, James Museveni seems to have achieved what the British failed to achieve in 70 years. They achieved it in 40 years. Because the British, basically, their method was, wherever they were, all colonial forces, was take over in a community, reorient their thinking, break down their sense of self-worth, and cause them to achieve a new identity where they are citizens of a country, but accept their station in life. But they are not superior to a level like the colonialists were. So they should accept that station of life. They failed to achieve that. All over the world. I mean, you can imagine the British ruling over India, which was, I don't know how many times larger, how many times in terms of population. Even the colonial entities in Africa, when you combine the numbers of Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya, and all those, South Africa, Rhodesia, whatever, Ghana, the British colonies, many masses of people. And then you'll find about 100 British district commissioners and maybe the officers of the army and civil service. And then they create a group of collaborators. Then they manage. Now, the British colonial forces, of course, their approach was different when you look at the British and the French. The British, fortunately for us who were in the colonial entities under the British, knew that there was a limit. You couldn't become British, whatever you did. So it was easier to galvanize the Africans to fight, Africans, Asians, and the rest. The French had a different approach, which was more devastating, because they created a sense within the Africans and the other places where they were that you could actually become French.
The
system of assimilation, more or less. To think that if you are well educated and you could prosper, you can speak French, you adopt certain mannerisms, table manners and things like that, that you could actually become civilized African who becomes
the French. In the African scheme.
That was more dangerous because it basically undermined the sense of self-worth within the African people who happen to live in the Francophone countries.
How different is
and you can see now there is a resurgence of the seeking for identity in the Francophone countries when you see what is happening in West Africa. So it has happened later, but it does happen.
Good years later.
Because at the end of the day, who are you as a person? It's what your identity is within you. It's not what you achieve.
Hope that this group of people in Uganda can, at some point, choose to stand for what they think.
Always. It's inherent within human beings. And even when they get compromised, maybe a generation or two can pass at times, as long as there are remnants who refuse that premise, that creates a new sense of identity different from who they are, they always succeed. Always. It's a law of change. It's a law of nature.
Let's talk about.
Here, why I was saying that James Museveni has achieved in 40 years what the British failed to do, he has brought a new sense that, you know what, it doesn't matter how you get wherever you get. If you can get money, if you are corrupt, it doesn't matter. But it makes you who you are. So, in that sense, he has literally, in a very subtle way, undermined the value systems in our society. The abnormal has become normalized. The sense of self-worth within our people has been so broken. And that's why I think where the danger stems from. That's what we're fighting against. Because when you have even leaders integrated in that thinking, to the extent that they are willing to abandon the people whom they are meant to lead, because they have reached a point where I say, you know what, if you can't beat them, join them. Lose your value systems. Even if you become like them, then you get money. It is okay. That now becomes a new sense of identity. That if you are rich, it is okay. If you have a position, it is okay. And that's dangerous. Okay. Of course, the good thing is that there are people who are always resilient, who never break down. So there are those who are frustrated, who think that now this situation cannot be changing. I think different. It will be changed. There's no doubt about it.
Let's talk about your approach. And I wanted to give you your own history. That back in the day when you were young, you picked up arms spent 5 years.
Yes.
There were no internet, no relative technology, to mention but a few. Just 5 years, in quotes, just. This whole struggle has taken you people, not you alone, over 20 or so years. Does that justify that armed struggles are quick fixers and then you people are, in quotes, hoodwinking citizens with this peaceful thing, that approach? Where?
Different forms of struggle have got their times. Because most times they are dictated by conditions, or they are guided or influenced by conditions. Because do not forget that even around our own time, there are many people who tried armed struggles and they never succeeded. So it depends on the conditions prevailing within every community. In our case, it was the timing. It was more of the timing.
Does that mean you are in a wrong timing now that's taking 20 years?
Well, now we are using different form of struggle because the struggle that is ongoing is the struggle of the mind. On the time when we took weapons, it was a struggle of organizational capabilities, the use of weapons. You defeat the enemy if you have got the right strategy and using the right operational methods and the tactics, and you're able to overwhelm the other side. But even to succeed in that, it must be, your success can't just be because you have weapons or because you have got superior organizational capabilities. The timing also must be right. Right now, it's very difficult for anybody to take up weapons and fight and succeed. Because, for example, when we fought in 80, we were never branded terrorists.
Yeah, sure. You were.
Right now, we're in a group which goes in the country and you fight even for 6 months. And then there is a displacement of the population, women, children. Immediately be tagged the terrorists.
Times have changed.
Times have changed.
How does it make you feel that you traverse the whole country for the previous time? Let's talk about 2021, now 2026, and your graph in terms of performance is literally not pleasing people, and then you have that message out to people, and then Justice Yakama reads what you scored. In any case, are you convinced that that's what you scored?
I'm not really perturbed by the outcomes of the electoral process itself. Why? Because I know that it was predetermined.
And you went ahead to participate in the predetermined.
Because it was a platform to continue advancing our message with the hope that there could be numbers of Ugandans who get the message and are able to come out in big numbers and overwhelm the system in spite of their pre-arranged intentions. Unfortunately, it seems we of course we didn't succeed in that because 10 million people didn't vote. And now that says something. Unfortunately, again, in our society, we do not have institutions which do analysis, which do analysis based on scientific studies. That's what we would all need. For example, all of us who are involved in the politics, whether in the government, whether in the opposition. We don't have resources ourselves. If we had, that's one of the first things we'd engage in as for national transformation. We want to go into the minds of the 10 million people. Why did they not vote? Also go in the minds of maybe the 11 million to find out why did they vote the way they did. Do they believe that what they did was right? The levels of contradictions in the way people think and act is frightening in this country. It's amazing that you can find people, results come out, but people are still disgruntled. Because you also look at other factors, for example, the use of money. It's telling. And that's why I was telling about General Museveni achieving what the British didn't achieve in 70 years. That you break down the people to a level where they will just sell a vote at 2,000 shillings, 3,000 shillings.
They see you as their messiah at the time.
Yeah. People will simply, they are operating at the level of survival. But they know, they are not dumb. They know that 2,000 is not going to take them through 1 week. They know that. But they are in such a state where they, at a psychological level, and possibly even at a spiritual level, where they think that, you know what, if I can get this now, it gives them some form of satisfaction. but strange enough, influences them to do things that they ordinarily don't even believe in. But also things which are going to impact on their lives. Because a week after, and you can tell you right now, it will just be like 1 month, close to 1 month after election. If you get one of those people who voted the way they voted because of money, maybe 10,000 shillings they got, maybe 5,000. If they go to hospital, they won't find their drugs, that's for sure. And if they go to treat their child or wife or husband outside of they're going to pay more than what they got. So the danger is, I don't know whether to call it a danger. The frightening thing is for them not to relate the two.
Find a solution.
They have to know that, you know what, there's no way they're going to put drugs in hospitals unless there's a system where there's discipline, where there is a transparent methods of ensuring that whoever gets money for stocking drugs in hospitals has to do that. If they don't do that, there are repercussions to that. Now, when a society is not able to understand that, or even when they understand that, not be able to put it into practice, that's where the danger lies.
Now, talking about your previous plans to unite as the opposition, the public knows you as someone who speaks nothing but truth. And I hope that today you will inform our people, our viewers, nothing but the truth. What happened to your cooperation and you working together?
We were not
Seems
able
like you were left in space because there's some bit of hope. Oh,
yes.
opposition might have one candidate. What happened?
I think, again, we have two different ways of thinking in our society. There are people who think that having one candidate is the solution to the problem that we are faced with. I've never believed that. I know it is good when conditions allow it. We also know that it is possible to operate in one vehicle, to coordinate effort and effectively, even when you don't have one candidate. I've used examples in the past when you have got common objectives. Maybe you have 5, but out of what could be common objectives out of the 5, you agree on 4, you don't agree on the 1. I have never understood any reason why you can't build around the 4, even when you engage in the 5th one separately.
Because all
I normally use examples, most unfortunately they are military in nature. Second World War. Nazi Germany was a common threat to what at that time one could term the West, America and UK and France, and the rest. Soviet Union was communist. The West was capitalist. And they were looking at how to bring each other down. But Nazi Germany became a threat to both. They worked together. They didn't have one common command. It's not that they said, for us to fight against Germany, you Russians, you must become American, or you must become capitalist. Or for the Soviet Union to say, you Americans and UK, for us to work together, create 2 different fronts against a common objective, you must become communist. They didn't do that. They had to deal with a common threat. And they did, effectively. And after the collapse of the German Third Reich, they again went back to their, but also created the world order under which they would operate, under which they would compete. Yes. They had to put their, structure, the UN and all nature of, was not, maybe the most perfect, but it has worked for this period. Until now, we're going to another phase of the global struggle. Anybody who follows world events can see that we're going to a new phase again, where we're almost leading into a multipolar world. But back to our own situation. I have always told colleagues in 2011, 2016, even 2021, and even 2026. My argument was always, best case scenario, let's have one candidate.
Worst case scenario, divide the
But
votes.
even if we don't get the best case scenario, let's ensure that we have one organizational infrastructure that we put in place, a vehicle for struggle. Best case scenario, you take power. If you don't, you have sustained it and you continue right from the day when they announce the wrong results. You continue after you've agreed on which methods to use, you continue when you are together. I've never believed that just because you don't have one candidate, that's what causes failure for us to take over. I have never believed in that.
I think, General, if I may share with you
Yes.
what the public thinks
Yes.
about. It's simply the basic. I think it's the basic algebra,
Yes.
mathematics.
Yes,
General Muntu gets, say, 100 votes.
yes,
Candidate B gets 100 votes. Candidate C gets 100 votes. Those are 300 votes.
yes.
Subdivided amongst the three of you. Your opponent comes and gets, say, 300.
See, that's simplistic.
Because also we
And,
have seen,
unfortunately, we seem to have leaders also thinking simplistic.
General, in a second, we have seen parliamentarians
Yes.
where you people in opposition have had three also candidates, and one other NRM gets their candidate and wins by a margin which is even less as compared to the entire.
At parliamentary level, we've seen that. But have you seen it at the presidential level ever?
We haven't had
We've never.
the opportunity to
We've never. Because even if you added all the votes of the
still the
opposition
still-
candidates and added them on to the one who would have had the highest, you wouldn't even come close. But then the problem is when you get out of the electoral process, you are separate.
different.
My argument has always been having an operational vehicle before, during, and after is the most critical. Because you can imagine if we had adopted that right from 2011.
Would be fun, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Because in my own estimation, my argument, even during the time when we went into this election, my argument was, even if you have two different candidates, you can have them, for example, go in an area where there is a single candidate for any of the parties. Like in this case, there was NUP, there was PFF, there was NT. We were two. You could have the two principals go into an area where there was one NUP candidate, no PFF, no NT, and vote for them. Go into PFF area, vote, campaign for the one of PFF. Go into an NT area where there is no NUP, where there is no PFF, do that. But ensure that you build the infrastructure for voter protection and other things that need to be done. Best case scenario, the leading candidate overwhelms the system. If it doesn't happen, you are still together. When you come out, that gives a picture of unity, basically, in as far as I'm concerned, at an operational level. But also gives you sustenance. But there are those who think that if you don't have one candidate, then you are not together.
Yeah.
Of course, the outcomes have been seen. 2011, 2016, 2021. So the problem is not only on the side of government, even on our
Even
side.
yeah.
We don't think through things in depth. We look at the short term, and that's another area where there are differences. There are those who are only looking at the short
Must
term.
be now.
For us, we are building long term. That's why we always say we are people who are involved in a marathon. We know that. Therefore, when you get people who are thinking
The spring.
in a sprint, with people who are looking at running a marathon, most times their conclusions are going to be different. So that's unfortunate, but that's the reality of the matter. But time keeps on sieving us. People who are resilient, if they know what they are doing, if they have the organizational capabilities to sustain and build, keep building, time will bear them out. Those who don't have that, time will sort them out. So it's not nothing that we should quarrel about, it's nothing we should be emotional about. I can tell you, right eventually triumphs. If you're not right, you pay the price. If you're right and you're persistent and you're resilient, eventually everybody will reach the same conclusion that that was the right strategy. So it's not nothing we should be worried about so much. As far as I'm concerned.
If I may ask you, and of course, with honest
And then actually, for me, where I went, we didn't have any MOU with any of the
we are doing it at just goodwill.
Wherever I would go, I knew that what was right. Everywhere I would go, where I would find the PFF candidate, I would look for votes for them. And at the local level, at the regional levels actually, we collaborated a lot with many of the PFF. Because earlier on, we had been in an MOU which never got concluded when we became 3. Because when we became 3, we were supposed now to go into an MOU for all the 3. So when we met, when we were 3, the one we had, the 2 between us and PFF, that one collapsed. And we were supposed to enter the one of the 3. And the one of the 3 didn't take off. So we went into this election at that. But wherever we would go, we would interact and work very closely, by the way, with the number of PFF leaders at the lower level. Even where with NUPWA we didn't have collaboration of any nature in terms of an MOU, in the first one of the 2, or not even on the 3, when I would go and find a NUP candidate, I would look for votes for them, because I would know that if at an organization level the opposition entities become strong, then it adds value onto what we need to keep doing until we turn the tide in this country.
Okay,
so to me, there are things which are so obvious, but they may not be obvious to others.
Given the results as declared by Electoral Commission, do you think Mr. Museveni rigged himself to office, or
I was actually surprised. I was surprised that they didn't give him 90 plus.
What do you mean?
You know, that's what happens in most of these regimes. I mean, Mubarak had got 98, I think. Bashir, I think, had got 90
what
plus.
Do you mean? Was he simply given results, or he worked for it? Because if you look at how much effort he put in Kampala Metropolitan, as we speak, NUP is
the management of the electoral process here is very complex. It involves so many things.
Would you have?
But the end of the day, it was a mixture of so many things.
Would you have performed better?
There was money. There was. I didn't expect that I would spring from where I was to win. I knew that. Also know that in many districts, they simply ticked on the table because the threat to NRM was that, you know what, if Muntu reduces the votes of Gen 7, maybe he could be beaten. So I know many places where they simply ticked on the table for presidential. I know that. And I know in many places where they just, you know, I know I don't want to go into those details. To me, that is already water under the bridge. We have to study, understand where mistakes have been made, and continue the struggle to ensure how do we recover our sense of self-worth as a people. How do we create new conditions, a new culture, where what has become normalized, which is abnormal, now is turned round. And we build a society where we know that, you know, you can't live at peace with each other unless there is justice. That there's no way you can live in a country where jungle law applies. That if you're a lion, you can eat whoever you want to eat.
But that's what
it seems to be. And then there are many people who are accepting that you know what, there's nothing we can do. And even people who are in positions where they could speak, many have decided to check themselves. Survival.
But you may not blame it on the lion. Given the disunity amongst the antelopes, rabbits.
You know, for me, I always look at two things.
And the rest.
I don't look at. That's why I keep telling people that we are fighting a culture. Gen 7 is a symptom of a larger problem. He has exacerbated it. He has completely failed to turn around what we could have turned around. Create a foundation. And upon which you could build a system where there is justice, where there is fairness, where there is transparency in the management of national resources. But he got sucked in himself. If his intentions all along was to change the system anyway, he got defeated and joined the thinking and has perfected it. Basically, that's what you have to give it to him. He has perfected it. So disintegrating that base and building a new foundation is the area of struggle. Because even with his exit, doesn't mean that the system is going to change. The culture may not necessarily change. It's going to depend on, do we have the people who are resilient? Do we have people who are ready to take a stand and say, you know what has become normalized, but which is ordinary abnormal, must be turned around. That's the bottom line.
Now,
Excuse me.
now,
If we have people who understand it and they're ready to take a stand to change it, then it will be changed sooner than later. If we don't have that, then you have another person who calls in, change of faces, but the system continues. The culture continues.
okay. Going by the voting pattern and the quality of let's talk about parliamentarians,
Yes.
what's your take when it comes to, because opposition is laws, where people also continue to think that this parliament may be very uncomparable. So help us compare. How
We
you
have had
think this parliament and
progressive degeneration of parliament since actually I think parliaments which performed quite well and they really put up a spirited struggle to maintain and build a new culture in terms of good governance. Possibly the 6th and 7th parliament. After that, there's been
degeneration, as you say.
continuous degeneration. This one is going to be worse, I suspect.
What makes you
than the
think
one
it will be
before.
worse than the
One, the nature of the people who are there. Their thinking is now no different from what the system has designed it to be. Survival of the fittest. If you have money, don't care. Once you get there, go there and amass what you can amass. The people, that's their business. Something will help them out of that. That's the mentality of many of the people who are in politics. I can tell you, like, out of NRM, those who run on the ticket of NRM, out of 10, 8 don't believe in it. But they are there. So you tell me, people who are conflicted in that sense, how can they change the situation? They can't.
And the big man himself.
And they are the majority.
What did you read of the coming government at large? And I want to refer you to the newly appointed Chief Justice, having been sworn in.
I'm not learned about that.
Having been sworn in from Rajtula. No, I think this was, and so.
I've not been following the press closely. I don't know what kind of comments are coming from the public.
People are wondering why he could have gone to, why he did go to, to the president's private home to be sworn in as Chief Justice, and people continue to.
But it's normal now. It's just normal, right? And that's why also I'm saying that, when you find in a society where the abnormal becomes normalized, that means the state of being, the state of thinking in that society needs to be critically analyzed. Why? Because and it's deliberate. I doubt whether it was by accident. Because General Museveni excels at psychological warfare.
Mm.
Do something like that. And when there is no outrage, you know that you have the people where you want them to be. Exactly. That's what it is about. Because ordinarily, how would something like that simply pass?
Mm.
Do you hear anything from Parliament? I doubt whether you hear anything from Parliament.
You said it's never.
That's the state of being of our people. The elite, the political elite are at that point. But I've seen that happen many times before in other places. But change happens. Anybody who understands the laws of nature which operate within our living on this planet, if you understand them well, yes, there are people who reach that point where they achieve what they would have designed purposefully, consciously. But there's always a turning point. I have seen that happen in many countries. I also know that here it will happen. As what direction we take there from, I don't know yet.
And the when will also be.
The when, I don't know.
Okay.
That's why it's a struggle between two different
Dimensions.
thoughts. I don't know what to call them.
Theories,
views,
views,
ways of thinking.
doctrines.
Yeah, ways of thinking.
I watched you sometime, and people were asking you. I think some media house was asking you about your decision not to petition
Yes.
Supreme Court in regards to what transpired in the elections. Does that make you someone who justifies and says that the process was okay, rather than having gone to court to challenge that?
Not going to church, not going to the courts has nothing to do with acceptance. Because even to go to court, you must have proof. It's like if you don't have stock of what you have in your house, someone breaks in and they take things from your house. But you didn't have stock of what you had. Now, when you go in, you know there's been a robbery. But you don't know what was exactly taken.
So
that's exactly our situation. Because, like, for
example,
example, I know our weakness, for example.
That becomes your weakness.
Yeah, of course, I accept. For me, I accept. It's also a societal weakness. Because people want to have things good, but they are not able to invest into building the instruments for leading them to the good that they desire to go to. Because how will you have a party which is able to, for example, have agents in 50,000 polling stations unless that party is organized? How will that party be organized unless it is able to operate at the sub-county parish, at the minimum? Because at least we have 11,000 parishes, now there are more, and about 3,000 now sub-counties. That has always been our desire. But we are limited by the means. We didn't have a member of parliament so that we could be able to get resources to put in favor. We would appeal the public thinks that's not part of their business. So we are in that mess. We recognize our part. For us, the moment we get resources, like now we're out of this election, we tend to go back down. But to go back down and build, we need resources. If the population thinks that's none of their business, we'll continue reaping what we sow.
Okay. Yeah. In our next...
Because like in our case, we know that we didn't have, other than the areas where we had built some capability, which is not in the whole country yet, we knew for sure that we wouldn't be able to get agents. So in some cases, we even appealed those who could volunteer. Of course, that's another problem we have in our society now. For you to get an agent, you must pay. So you ask yourself, this person needs something good for their lives for the long term. But because they need 10,000 or 20,000 in one day, they are not willing to do anything unless they are paid. So that's the nature of our society. That's where we are at.
So were you in a position to have all your DRR forms from the entire country? Or?
No. We were not able to fill the agents in many places because we didn't have the organizational capabilities down there. That's why we're going to continue building. And I don't know, I have not checked with the other sister parties. I don't know what percentage of DRR forms they were able to pick from the different areas.
So you relied on what Justice Biakama was giving you at the Tally Center and that's all?
Because if you don't have your own DRR forms, what are you going to depend on to know that here we got 1,000 votes, but we were given only 200? How will you know that? Or how will you even know that here we had the parties, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 had agents, all of them were thrown out, if you don't get feedback written from the agents who were thrown out. And then you come with all this evidence.
That's how you can be.
So building is a critical factor if we want to get this country out of the mess in which we are. Even the citizens themselves need to know that. You cannot eat your cake and have it at the same time. You want a better future, you have to invest into it.
Okay. We're closing shortly, like in 3 or so minutes. Gladly, you are a military officer, retired now, and you people have a doctrine of no retreat, no surrender. Are you yet to choose one of the two, or you want to continue? Either you retreat or you surrender.
Of course, the two are not even options. There's no way I can retreat, there's no way I can surrender. Why? Because you see, the way we are wired, when we are created, is a sense of self-worth that is wired within us. To me, as far as I'm concerned, that's the most important thing for the existence of any human being. even those whose sense of self-worth has been undermined to the extent that they forget about that. And therefore, they think that they should achieve their identity on something else outside of themselves. There's no way I can live that struggle until we achieve that or get out of existence when we are trying to do that.
But you are not.
That's how I am wired. For me, that's how I am wired.
So surrendering.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
You know, the Bible says that what does it benefit a man to gain the whole world and lose his very soul? That's what I see these people in government, many of them. The chief architect, nothing. They just don't care about the soul. They don't. I mean, someone who doesn't care about being corrupt, people who don't care about being unjust, people who don't care about undermining others, people's self-worth to a point where they break them down to making critical decisions by just simply getting 500 shillings, 1,000 shillings. You think that such people really care about their state of mind? They have totally, absolutely. I have no doubt about that.
As we live here, what's your plan now? You have 5 years down the road. That one week, you have, in quotes, played to the gallery, lost it. Now back on street struggle. So what's your plan? 5 years.
The loss is short term. The engagement is long term. We continue engaging until we change our society, build a strong foundation on the basis of which, yes, we look for the things which are material, which make our lives become comfortable. You get well educated, you get good health, you get money, you build a house, you do whatever you want to do, but that your sense of self-worth is not tampered with. Because that's God-given. So the contention is between two different forces. So the contention has to continue until we see the outcomes which we believe we will see. There must be justice, there must be fairness, there must be transparency in the management of national resources, because the national resources belong to all of us, because we all pay taxes. So anybody who is managing those resources, they are not his resources. Even if I was the one in power, they wouldn't be my resources. So there must be a system that recognizes that. That's the bottom line. And that's where decisions must be made. Which side do you belong? And the contention is continuous. It cannot cease. It's been there since creation. So it's not going to terminate in our time. So it's nothing new. It's a question of choices that we make. Which side do you belong? Period.
Okay. Our viewers, we pray that next time we also have General Mugisha Muntu to, of course, share with us any successes or success stories. Of course, we always appreciate his time. Every Friday, Face the Nation, this is what happens. Asking people to share their opinion on topical discussions that are, of course, happening in this country. We continue to thank our viewers on our social media handles. Friday, 5 to 6 p.m. is when we have Face the Nation. And I can't add anything for now. See you some other time.